Tory Lanez gets hit with a new felony charge in this Megan Thee Stallion shooting case. Let's get into the details. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about the recently added felony charge against Tory Lanez. And so, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last couple of years, you've definitely heard about this case in which Tory Lanez is being accused of shooting Megan Thee Stallion. And so this shooting occurred over 2 years ago, and we're finally getting to trial. In case you're wondering, the weight on this isn't exactly outside of the ordinary. I mean, COVID has put every case on delay, so that's to be expected. But when you have a trial like this, or you have a case like this with high profile people involved, and you have the seriousness of it. So we're talking about a shooting. You're gonna have a lot of investigation. There's gonna be a lot of court hearings. You're gonna have, back and forth negotiations. There's gonna be quite a bit of continuances for the purpose of doing legal research. It's my understanding that Tory Lanez is a Canadian citizen, so there might be some immigration issues, because if you're not a citizen in the United States, whenever you have a criminal issue, that adds, different complications to the situation. And so, it's right on, it's par for the course in terms of the amount of time that this case has been taking. But, here, we're at trial now. And so Tory Lanez, real name Daystar Peterson, he was already facing 2 felony charges, one for assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and the second count was for carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle. And so there's also an allegation related to the assault, and that's that he inflicted great bodily injury. And so any type of case where you're gonna have an assault charge and you have either serious bruising, lacerations, certainly broken bones, anything like that, something that's going to send somebody to the hospital, although, hospital visit is not necessary for a great bodily injury allegation, but generally speaking, if you have to end up going to the hospital, that's going to be an added allegation that gets filed along with these cases. And so the new charge that the DA added this week is for discharging a firearm with gross negligence. And so if Tory Lanez is convicted on all 3 counts, he's facing a maximum of 22 years and 8 months. So he's looking at some serious time. And so let me know what you think. Do you think he's ultimately going to get convicted in this case, or does he somehow beat the case? It'll be an interesting one to see how it plays out. But needless to say, the new charge does not actually add to the exposure, since it's based on, the same course of conduct. If he were convicted, this would not add any additional exposure, because the sentence on the new count would end up running concurrently. But the reason why I believe they ended up filing the new count is as a fallback position. If the DA is not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tory Lanez actually shot Megan Thee Stallion in the foot, causing those injuries, then as a fallback, they can at least say, hey, well, he had the gun and fired it, negligently. He shot in the air, even if it wasn't that he actually shot Megan. So that would be kind of their fallback. If we can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he shot her, we can just say that he shot the weapon, and he'd still be facing some time on that. But as you know, Tory is accused of pointing a 9mm handgun at Megan's feet and yelling, "Dance, bitch," and then shooting her on the early morning hours of July 12, 2020. And so there was a preliminary hearing in this case, and basically a preliminary hearing is a probable cause hearing. It's almost like a miniature trial in which the judge who hears the evidence, because there's no jury involved at this point, the judge is determining, number 1, whether there's been a crime committed, and number 2, whether the person who stands accused committed that crime. And so the DA is going to put on the minimal evidence to establish that there's probable cause to hold the defendant to answer to the charges. So at the prelim, one of the detectives on the case basically testified that, hey, he spoke to Megan Thee Stallion on 2 separate occasions. One of those was a couple of days after the incident, and then he spoke to her again a couple of months after the incident. She was adamant that it was Tory Lanez who pointed the gun at her, who shot her, and she didn't waver from that. Megan had indicated to him that she observed Mr. Peterson, so Daystar Peterson, holding a firearm. She observed him shoot. She then immediately felt pain to her feet. She observed blood. She fell to the ground and then crawled to an adjacent driveway. And she described the injuries as bleeding profusely. So there really was no equivocation as to who did this. She was very clear that it was Tory Lanez that shot her. But on the contrary, the defense in the case, at least based on the cross-examination questions during the preliminary hearing, seemed to be centering around the theory that it may not have been Tory Lanez that shot Megan Thee Stallion, or that he didn't shoot her at all. And, he has since changed defense counsel, so the attorney that was representing him at the preliminary hearing is not the same attorney that is representing him at trial, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything. A person has the right to the counsel of their choice, and for whatever reason, he's switched lawyers. And interestingly enough, Tory Lanez has even dropped song lyrics suggesting that he didn't actually shoot Megan. In support of this defense, they do at least have Megan Thee Stallion initially reporting that she was not shot, but in fact she had stepped on glass, and that's what actually caused the laceration, not bullets. But as she did come to provide her reasoning for why she said that, and ultimately what she said was that Tory did in fact shoot her, but what she did not want to have happen is have a what was already a bad situation turn worse by police approaching this situation as a young black man armed who had just shot at her, and we all know that this could have really escalated a tense situation and made it worse. And so, and we have in fact seen cops do worse under much less threatening circumstances. So I think, realistically, that is going to be reasoning that is found to be sound, and I think it's going to be hard to really refute. But one of the other possible defense arguments was highlighted at the preliminary hearing. Apparently there was an eyewitness who had seen the incident through his bedroom window or through a window, and he said that when he saw the muzzle flash, that muzzle flash was actually closer in proximity to the non-victim female, so Kelsey Harris, who was also there present. So the muzzle flash was closer to her, and if the muzzle flash was closer to her, then that suggests that it was perhaps her that fired the weapon versus, the muzzle flash being closer to the male, which would suggest that Tory Lanez had fired the weapon. One of the interesting issues that goes along with that theory is that Kelsey and Megan were actual friends, close friends, but they ended up having a falling out. And so the theory that could possibly be put forth is that it was Kelsey who shot Megan and not Tory. And so, those aren't my words. I'm not saying that she did shoot. That's just a potential theory that could come out. And so, and this is further complicated or supported by the fact that Tory and Megan had an intimate relationship going on, and her friend Kelsey had an interest in Tory. And so one of the theories, could be that, out of spite, out of jealousy, that Kelsey actually shot at her friend Megan. At the end of the day, the defense, they don't have to necessarily prove anything, and they don't have to prove anything at all. It's the prosecution that has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tory Lanez shot Megan. To the extent the defense can plant seeds of reasonable doubt in the jury's mind by these different theories, then that might be enough in order to ultimately persuade or convince a jury that the DA is not able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But ultimately, one thing that's absolutely not helpful to Tory Lanez's defense is a jail call that the DA seeks to have admitted. There's a recording of a jail call that Tory Lanez had made to Kelsey, and just so you know, all jail calls are recorded, and there is no expectation of privacy when it comes to making calls from a jail phone, so you should never say anything that you don't expect to be heard, at least by sheriff's staff. Potentially, if a case goes to trial, being played in front of a jury, heard by detectives, heard by DAs, heard by the public. So In this call, Tory Lanez basically is apologizing about what happened, basically saying that he was drunk. And so naturally the DA is going to want to use that as evidence that he did in fact shoot Megan Thee Stallion, because most people, if they didn't do anything wrong, they're certainly not going to be apologizing profusely about, what they did. So that's absolutely going to be a huge piece of evidence for the DA to play in front of the jury in support of their position that Tory Lanez did in fact shoot Megan Thee Stallion. They just started picking a jury in this case, and so, in this type of case, you're probably gonna be going for at least a week in terms of selecting a jury. Could spill into next week, but they should be starting with opening statements next week. So this is absolutely going to be an interesting one to see how it plays out, and this is going to be it for this video. So if you got something out of this, please show me some love and hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.